because generally when we're truly avoidant, we'll notice that our energy is being drained and siphoned away. When it's nourishment, we'll feel more full afterwards. Even after a big emotional process, we may feel tired, but we may feel more open and present with the world. And that for me is a good indication of what I really need in the moment. If I can listen deeply enough to what's taken my energy and what's given me energy back.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for staying. I'm here to share with you the beautiful transmissions from the walls of my cavernous heart and to witness the great frequency shift that we are moving into as a collective and the beautiful deep work that we are doing as we glide into the age of Aquarius. This is the Liminal Frequencies podcast. Let's go.
Hello out there. How are you doing? How are you experiencing the great frequency shift of April? And it's really interesting how we visit and we revisit things, because I just recently edited this podcast with Dean back from October, and we talked a lot about the sacred pause and how we drop into a place where we just let our creativity and everything go offline so we can rest and we can come back in the full revival mode. And in my experience with my work, having some kind of illness or injury or just times of disorientation, which, by the way, this Uranus in Gemini has caused sort of this foggy, spacey disorientation. It almost feels like you had a concussion. I've experienced clients having concussions and just stuff coming offline so that it can come back online in an even more vibrant way, so that we can download even more codes and even more gifts and abilities. I've literally feel like a lot of my gifts that have come online during a time of illness or a time when I just couldn't fully show up and I knew I needed to take some time. So this interview happened back in October, and that was an interesting time for me, going through the death of a friend. And I believe it was shortly after that event that I was like, okay, I already have things scheduled. I had this 10-year anniversary party, which was really beautiful, and I was expecting and planning on my friend being there with us. And so yes, he was with us in so many different ways. I put on the elephant onesie that I was wearing the last time that we spent time together at this music festival, and I was holding the stuffy that he gave me. It was an elephant stuffed animal, and just telling some stories. And it was like really beautiful, because what comes alive for us in those moments is not the superficial, the thing you plan, but the true beauty and grit that we can't necessarily plan ahead for, but it just comes out in this beautiful flow. So I really enjoyed revisiting this during this time, because now we are dropping into Taurus season, which is about rest and comfort. And this is the first time that in the Northwest we can really stick our feet in the grass and just lounge, and it's so nice. And at the same time, we're going through, there's 2 planets in Gemini and the rest of the planets are in Aries, and we're going through this rebirthing process, and now we're on a new timeline, and now we're ready to bring in the things that we've been resisting, the change that we haven't been ready for. So it can be uncomfortable, And yet, revisiting that pause and seeing how we can reset in new ways, was really beautiful for me, just being with those feelings and emotions. And this kind of does happen naturally with the lunar cycles. So every 6 months, we have a lunation that is coming to fruition and building on the previous new moon. So right now, we're in Scorpio full moon. And the Scorpio new moon, it was around the time of this recording, back in November, that we were just lifting the energy and moving through that. So it's nice to really visit that sense of closing in and getting ready for the winter as we do the complete opposite now, and we open up for, what's to come and the new seeds that are growing. So I want to share with you this amazing transformative facilitator, Dean Bentley, speaker, who is experienced in the initiation process, men's work, and creating conscious change. His work centers around core principles of alchemy, creating an internal sense of alignment, knowing thyself, and directing the will. This frequently requires healing and returning to wholeness, the parts of the psyche that have been separated due to trauma, conditioning, and culture. Ain't that the truth? That we are seeking a sense of return to our wholeness by integrating those pieces of ourselves that have left. And it's funny how I can literally see that in my clients. I literally see people's holographic data and blueprints just scattered throughout the room as we have to provide some kind of self-preservation when we are injured or we're heartbroken or we're ill, and we scatter ourselves intentionally so that the brunt of the trauma doesn't affect us. And to continue on that thread with Dean, there's a core philosophy based on acknowledging the innate power as co-creators in this reality. Dean guides leaders into deep purpose through strengthening soul connection and bringing their gifts forward. So I am so grateful to share space with this co-creator today. I really hope that you enjoy our conversation, and boil some water for a nice cup of tea so you can kind of return to that sense of darkening, the fall, returning to the self, returning to our center as we prepare ourselves for things to be even more expansive and open in the coming months. Okay, put on your narwhal onesie because we are diving in. Dean, thank you so much for joining us on the Liminal Frequency podcast.
It's a pleasure to be back, Gillian. I've been looking forward to this conversation. I've had a bit of hiatus from podcasts, so this is pulling me from my hermit hole, and I very much look forward to diving in and exploring what's alive today.
Yay, I'm so glad that you were able to make it, and it's so good to honor those breaks, those sacred pauses where we need to rest and just be in our own energy.
Yeah, and I find that's a big theme. I've been someone who likes to do a lot, and I've been a creative and businessman and done all sorts, whether that's been of service, facilitation, retreats, all sorts of things. And one of my edges and growth points is actually to take that pause and step away and say, oh, I get to rest, recharge, and really choose what the next stage is looking like for me. I think a lot of us get really stuck in that I need to prove myself, I need to keep going, and if I stop, I'm going to fall behind. And this was a big fear for me, that if I'm if I'm not creating content for my business or recording podcasts, I'm going to become irrelevant or not important or not enough. And you can see the underlying themes there. So to actually take those moments, and this is what I tell my clients as well, growth can look like so many things. It doesn't look linear in, oh, I need to do more, I need to take more action, I need to meditate and journal, and now breath work, and then the yoga and all of this. It can actually look like taking a pause and sitting with the resistance of that pause, because under that is some gold, some wounding that may be keeping certain conditioning and identities alive that make us um, do things unconsciously and not have a full conscious choice. So I really appreciate these times where I challenge that part of myself that's like, do more, or continue to grow. And actually the integration and slowness, I've found more growth, more groundedness and more centeredness within it. And that's been a result of the work, but also the integration and time that's allowed my system to actually embody a lot of what it's learned.
Yes. That's the real work, is the integration in between the workshops and breathwork sessions, right?
Yeah, it's how are we bringing it back to the everyday? Recently I started taking men up to the mountain with a brother of mine, Jacob Houston, every 2 months about. And our intention is to have that experience where we take men to the mountain. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with the analogy of, it's easy to do the work when you're on the mountain, but the real work begins when you actually bring that back into the everyday world. And our intention with that is almost a point where we can go out and every 2 months be like, okay, did we actually do what we said we were going to do in the world? How did our shadows show up? How did we distract ourselves? How did we fall away? But to have that guide rail in place where we actually get to go see and be like, okay, 2 months, it's a significant amount of time, but it also has that guide rail to bumper you back and land and help men integrate, while also not being an extensive deep dive into some of the deepest wounding, just some time in nature with some guided processes that really helps men soften, integrate, and continue to bring forth what they're here to bring forth.
Yeah, sometimes the soft containers are the most potent. Like the containers,
Yeah.
the containers where you're maybe not even doing a whole lot or even anything at all specifically towards healing, but where you're surrounded by people with intention, embodiment. Sometimes that's all you need. Having meals together, singing by the fire.
Yeah, and like if we look at culture right now and society, it's it's very forward progress movement, and really a lot of that comes from unconscious conditioning. So when we're looking at to rewire that, it does mean doing the opposite. It does mean challenging that status quo and just being like, oh, what happens when that falls away? And especially with men, we have such identity with the doer. That's like an identity for men. We get our validation, our worth because we can do this. But who are we when we actually strip that away and come into a deeper spot within ourselves? Because you cannot access the depth if you're stuck in the identity of the doer. And a lot of that comes from getting validation and worth, but that's looking outside of oneself. So when we strip that back, we can actually begin to validate ourselves for who we are, not what we do.
Yeah. And a lot of the times our self-worth and our productivity are linked together. I took an African dance class, and they said in Guinea, where the tradition comes from, people do not link their self-worth with their productivity. And so with that to work with, you sign up for the class that you're going to feel the most comfortable in, not for the class that's going to show you, a big challenge, a big edge, so that you can feel like you're really doing something.
Yeah, it's funny the difference between the Western world and other cultures and how deeply some of this conditioning can lay.
Yeah, absolutely. Excavating our ancestral lineages for an ability to let go of some of that.
Yeah, and for me not to judge it as well. Like I see so much gold in the part of me that actually wants to do, and this is the complexity of this. We're not trying to get rid of one side or the other, or say this one's right or this one's wrong. It's actually to integrate so we can have conscious choice. Because the part of me that wants to do and strive and create in the world, well, that's the part of me that is so beautiful when I'm wanting to be of service and create business that can serve people. It's the one that helps me create my content. But it becomes a shadow when I'm not aware of how that at times can then link to my self worth. It's to unpack that, see the gold in it, and keep that, but also see the underlying part, the wounded aspect of self that needs love and validation from within, rather than trying to continue to bypass that part and then see how that one can still be in service to the greater vision, the greater good, and even presence as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just made me think about grief and how all of that ties into the undoing process. How either maybe we experience grief and we're kind of forced to go into the undoing process. Yeah, I've definitely had moments of grief where I wanted to push through it and keep facilitating things and doing workshops, and that just didn't work out. And then the other end of it, where the process of grief just brings you more into the undoing and the being with, because sometimes that's all you can really do.
What happened for you in those moments where you continued to try and strive while also being in grief or push through it?
I was usually blocked by the universe. Things didn't work out. People didn't sign up for stuff. Yeah, didn't happen. Or if it was a physical thing, I kept hurting myself until I actually surrendered to the fact that, like, I need to feel these feelings.
Yeah, it's funny that, and it's the thing I find in myself, the frustration of, oh, come on, just work, and then the frustration invites a deeper grief, and then the emotion emerges, and like I feel the beauty of what you're saying. It's for me, once the feeling's been truly felt, naturally life will emerge. Like when death is sat with, when we be with it, new life will naturally begin, whatever that is. And that's the scary part. I'm curious for yourself, and I'm sorry, I love asking questions on these myself. But
Yeah.
like, why do you think that, as humans, we're so afraid to be with that grief? Because I see it as a fear, and I see it as a fear of death as well. But why do we have such resistance to actually slow and being with that grief?
It's so silly, right? Because for me, as an emotional alchemist, the more that I am with those things, the more progress in whatever progress means, but the more that I actually transform and transmute. And it's just a beautiful shift being able to, and sometimes it's really necessary to have somebody to be with that. Some facilitator, a container. If you don't have a facilitator or a container, even just creating your own ceremony, lighting the candles, taking yourself out in nature, or even recording yourself, I find that a really awesome way to hold accountability in space for what's happening inside, where it's totally on the record. Doesn't matter if you don't listen to it, but it's on the record.
I've actually found myself doing that over the last 2 months, recording myself in the camera, and it's so powerful to actually just sit with that, see oneself, and I agree, a great process.
Witnessing. And the question about why we feel so much resistance, I would think that would be like almost the diagnosis or the antigen of why we actually need to be with the thing. It's the thing that is the reason why we don't want to be with the thing. And it's so easy. I mean, there's so many millions of things you could focus on besides the thing if you wanted to.
Can you say more on that?
Yeah, I mean, and just spending time with family and friends, and there are tendencies that we have to escape and to move into story and to move into other realities. And I have the tendency more to escape into what I'm facilitating for other people, not necessarily as much into story, but comedy for sure. That's a really good escape for me and a way that I can move through stuff if, I'm not in a space where I really directly want to. But I really enjoy, and I sometimes I go a little overboard, right? Like people do too many cold plunges, or they're so strict with themselves, like you have to stay there for 5 minutes. And my example of this was up until this event that I'm feeling grief from. I was giving myself like once a week about, I would just not listen to any outside input music, whatever I was doing in my day. If I am playing music while I'm doing a session, whatever, but I would sit in the car and I wouldn't play podcasts, I wouldn't play music. I would just like hold myself in that container of being with whatever came up. And a lot of times it was a really good creative outlet for me. And I think just now in this today point in time, I'm more apt to just microdose it and not do it for a whole day, because I'm feeling, I'm going to be gentle with this part of myself that at a certain point in time I may need to actually use the music as a way of transmuting and feeling grief, feeling emotion. And yeah.
I think there's a beautiful thing here. Like, a friend told me once after I was separated from a previous relationship, the importance of allowing the humanness. Generally, I've been someone who's like, "Oh, I need to sit with this and I need to be with this the whole time and just like sit in it." And what I found in myself, that led me to despair and hopelessness and depression, because I forego like some of the basic things of humanness. And I was like, it told me, go eat the ice cream, watch some Netflix, and forget about it for a moment. And it was some of the best advice, because as we're doing this work, it can be intense. It can be intense for our human, especially our little child that lives inside. And it's like, I just want, some. Maybe I do want to avoid for a little while or escape, and I need some safety. And not every day we need to touch the depths in that way, but to be with life. Sometimes
Right.
for myself, I need to honor that, okay, I'm avoidant right now and I just want to sit down and watch a show, or, have something that can allow my nervous system to regulate as well. Because if we're constantly in process in a dysregulated state, sometimes we can be digging and re-traumatizing and re-triggering and not actually moving through, because the system is so overwhelmed that we never move beyond the story, because we get caught in it again and again, and it's
Yes.
like a roller coaster we never get off, because we're approaching it in the same way.
Spinning wheel of death.
Yeah.
Like the computer. Yeah, mindful avoidance is something to consider. If you just find, where would you be making yourself worse, and where do you give yourself little microdoses of what you're feeling and intermix that with humor and something joyful.
Yeah, and I think a good litmus test for it is, does this give me more energy? Does this like make me feel more open and more present with the world? Because generally when we're truly avoidant, we'll notice that our energy is being drained and siphoned away. When it's nourishment, we'll feel more full afterwards. Even after a big emotional process, we may feel tired, but we may feel more open and present with the world. And that for me is a good indication of what I really need in the moment. If I can listen deeply enough to what's taken my energy and what's given me energy back.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what else is alive for you right now in your work or lack of work?
In my work, and it's funny, like I say I've been stepping away, and I'm still working with clients one-on-one. I'm hosting men's groups, and I'm also running a couple-day experience for men. So I say that, and it's a lot less for me, but it's still happening. But there's such excitement for the work with men at the moment, and that includes facilitating alongside another brother of mine, and really watching what happens when I'm able to meet with a man in this way, and we can sharpen each other, support one another, and really leaning into that. I see a lot of creatives and entrepreneurs where, and this is me, like when I say this, I'm speaking to myself, doing this work so much on our own and being like, cool, I need to be the one to hold this and do all of this and run this. And for me, there's been such beauty into leaning into other men. 2 weeks ago, I just got back from a retreat where we had 250 men out on the land for 4 days, and it was incredible. It's been a retreat I've been a part of for 4 years now, the gathering of men, and there's been such reverence to see men come and do that work, and also my own iterations in that. At the start of that, I've facilitated a couple years. In the last 2 years, I've stepped away to be firekeeper, working in the kitchens, and really be in the humbleness of service. And this is something that I feel so important with this when, we have the Instagram and we have all the things and want to be seen as the person who has it all figured out, and ask what's truly of service. And, the Embodied Man Institute, who organizes the Gathering of Men, which is a big retreat, I was an integral part of that, and I chose to step away. And that decision was knowing I needed some space to create my own work, but also just needed some space for my own evolution. And, my ego doesn't like that, to admit I want to go deeper into myself before I want to bring this work. And I see the patterns of perfectionism and not good enough within that. But there was also a deeper truth that I've been facilitating and coaching since I'm like 22. I'm 28 right now. And to actually take some time to pause and give that part of me that needed mentorship, that needed support to grow and develop, and be in humble service to a greater vision. That's something that for me is really honoring of my own growth. And it's really nice to see where my ego still thinks it needs to be someone to be worthy. And that's been the continuous theme for me, where it's stripping that away, not to disregard that part of me that's like, yeah, I want to be out front, I want to be leading. That's still such a beautiful part of me.
Yeah.
But to step away so that I know I don't need to. So it's not coming from a place of neediness, of, I'm doing this from a place of, if I don't do this, well, who am I? It's like, no, I don't want to be a facilitator of service because it feeds my ego in a certain way. I want to be that because it's true and what is asked of me. So really to step away in that manner and be like, okay, continue to listen. Continue to listen to what is true rather than what, in the past I would have been like, yeah, I've done this before. I should continue to do this. It's a great opportunity. I get to be seen. I get, all this validation. And it's like, hey, well, wait a minute. What happens if I don't do this? Who am I then? And this year I was in the kitchen and I had so much fun. I had more fun than I have had facilitating at times, and met incredible men who, taught great conversation and supported me and had supported them. And there was such beauty in that. So, yeah, that continued theme of stripping away the identity we think we have to be.
And that sounds like a really lovely movement through, I believe would be around the beginning of your Saturn return, where I'm sure a lot of people, they feel like they didn't find their calling, or they didn't get serious about whatever they were serious about. And so then the Saturn return invites them to kind of buckle down and commit to something. But in your case, you've been so kind of full steam ahead on this path that now you're finding that you could actually really embody it more and walk the talk if you drop into a little bit more of the housekeeping and kind of disassembling in order to come back, in full force as a facilitator.
Yeah, like I look at myth often as a guideline for how I live my life. And in myth, they often talk about bucket work or the ashes work. And it's a period within the underworld where we just tend to the basics. We chop wood, carry water, and it's not about being like in service to the ego, it's being in service to like the path itself. And just continuing to show up in that measure, which will guide us to where we need to be, rather than any ideas of, what we have to do. And I've seen it in myself how much I've wanted to skip this step. Like, no, I don't want to do this. I just want to be there already. And it's like, hey, like, are you doing it to be there, or are you doing it for the path itself? Like the journey before destination. And I agree, like the housekeeping has needed to be done. It's like, okay, I can facilitate, and I can see in that where at times there's been that little whisper of like, oh, you're getting like the proven, and to actually tend to that, to be with that aspect that needs time and love and presence, to integrate that in such a way where I can truly serve in the way that my heart desires and that I know I'm here to do.
Yeah, and it just involves a lot of self-care. I was working on somebody today who was a massage therapist, and I have other friends that are massage therapists that the output to me is something I can't even fathom, because for me, working that many hours, seeing that many clients, I just would have a hard time holding that much space with my physical body, with my mental body, being able to hold all that. And so knowing that if I have an output and I'm providing these services, I do need like my own time to be cared for, to have space held for me. And yeah, I like that this is coming up for me too, because as somebody who facilitates, sometimes it does feel like a good time to just check in and be in something supportive as well.
Yeah, and I think for me there's such a deconstruction of the pedestal or the like the different levels that people pretend we're at. It's like, yeah, I can facilitate someone and guide someone because in that area I might know more, but then in another area that person knows more. And for me, really leaning into people who can support me is so important. Like I have my own mentors, I have my own support. I'm heading off on Vision Quest this Saturday, and that's a period for myself. And it's this continued learning. I need support. I need others who can hold me if I'm holding others, because it's energetically, I need that. Otherwise, I'm trying to hold the weight of the world on my shoulders. And I think that's what a lot of people do. And they're like, I got to do it all myself. And so when you're speaking to the massage therapist, I'm in awe of anyone who does that, because I agree. I could not do that job, or it would take a lot from me energetically, physically. It would be beautiful. I'd love to do like less than what most of them do. I love the human body and contact and physical touch, and it's a beautiful act. But to do it in the way they do, that's intense and beautiful. But I love that there's support there for them as well.
I think what happened for me specifically was the last, I don't know, the timeline I'm not sure about. 2 years maybe, but especially the last year, there's just been a solar maximum, and the sun's been outputting this solar radiation, and we've been receiving it as this like big frequency shift and timeline shifts and upgrades. And maybe it's just because I've tapped into it, but I know it's been increasing because we're at this apex of everything. And the amplification of energy and how it's felt during those times, it feels amazing. Like things will come through that wouldn't normally come through for me because our channels are so open. But at the same time, I can only do like, a little bit more, a little bit less than I could do had we be in sort of a baseline place. And physically, I would just be exhausted from that, all that energy movement.
Yeah, and it takes a lot of attunement to know what we can offer and what we need for ourselves as well. And that listening is very hard.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's counterintuitive to our society structures and how we show up for people because, sometimes you don't have a reason, but you're just not in it that day, and you need to give yourself that grace.
Yeah, like I think so much of this is really about honoring the humanness of like, hey, I'm human right now, and my spirit may be infinite, but my human may need time to catch up or just time to rest and like be a little bit messy, chaotic, or whatever's happening for the human.
Yes, I love it. Love it. Absolutely. Well, is there anything on the horizon for you that you're excited about that you want to share?
I feel like Vision Quest for me is something that's been calling me for a little while. And ever since I signed up for it, there's been a whole lot of change in my life and a lot of turmoil. And I know that's clearing out a lot. And like anyone who's known, say, ever sign up for a big initiation or experience, will know that life begins to change as soon as you do that, even though maybe nothing has rather than you said yes. And this is the third time on Vision Quest for me, so I know what to expect. But this time, I think just with the timing and the Saturn return, there's been a lot of change coming my way, and it's just clearing out a lot. So there's an excitement for the other side of this. There feels like such unknown. I do know the podcast season 3 of The Weird Way will be coming back, which I'm very much looking forward to. Which is why I really loved coming on here. It feels like that little bit of a spark to help ignite that, and the confirmation of like, oh yeah, the podcast is coming back.
Is that your show?
Yeah, The Weird Way, WYRD. For those that don't know, weird, the etymology comes from that word, weird, WYRD, and it originally meant to control one's destiny. And that's what I always associated it. And for me, the weirdos, the ones who are a little bit different or a little bit weird, they generally have a greater say in what they're doing here upon this world, because they're not conforming to their belief systems and the structures of culture, and they're really choosing their own path. And that takes courage, it takes commitment, it takes a little bit of weirdness to actually say, I want to follow my heart in this way. So yeah, that podcast is coming back out. I've had some incredible guests, everyone from entrepreneurs to musicians to coaches to healers, to a lot of solo episodes. It's been an incredible journey with that. It actually landed after my second Vision Quest. So to feel it come back in after the third one feels really good. And I feel more creatives back in my business and just how I'm serving. I know there's a few things coming my way with Mountain in you will notice I may stumble when I go to say this, the Mountain in the Man, because I've got a men's group called the Men of the Mountain, and the friend I created the other one with, he named it and he didn't even know I had the men's group called Men of the Mountain. So there's like this crossover, and I stumble over the words, and I'm like, which one am I talking about? So I'm really looking forward to landing after Quest and just seeing what emerges. There feels like a lot of life, and this period where I've been more, I don't want to say more humble, but I've more taken a step back to see myself and just be of service in a different way. It feels like it's created so much space for my creations and my service to evolve and emerge from here. And I'm just really excited to see what happens there. I feel like I've been called back into that arena, and I'm like, cool, let's see what magic wants to unfold. I know I'll be taking on some more clients and just feel that there's something there that I'm deeply excited about, but I'll wait until Quest to really see what that is, and just be open to listening without being like, oh, it's this or this or this. And
Yeah.
so that for me is the most exciting. And it comes back to this question of like, what am I in service to, and how does that look? And truly for me, that is life, like life itself. And how can I live more fully? How can I embody more of this? How can I continue to serve like this essence of life that invites people to live more fully? And just wanting to see what emerges within that, and how that may mean interplay with things that at times I dislike, like social media or things like that, that can actually still be in service to that. I've taken a real step away, and it's like, oh, if that's where I need to go to be in the arena to create the world I want, like that sacrifice of knowing that's what's needed of me, if that's true, not out of I want to, but just seeing, okay, what's actually true. And I know there's many ways to create, so I'm not attached to that, but really seeing, okay, what is being asked again, what is being needed, and how can we be in service to that.
Yeah. I mean, the real service you're stepping into is being service to yourself, and also the real work that begins when you find that. And on the social media thing, I've also taken a step back from it. It's just not really my frequency, and putting my energy in the podcast feels good, even if, theoretically maybe it's slower. I want to build like a longer connection with people, and that's why having a conversation rather than flashing before your eyes with reels and words. So, the intention is so important. If you go into it with the intention, or if you choose to step aside from it and your intention is to meet people where they're at, not on social media, then I think you're going to get that as well.
Yeah, yeah. And like for me, knowing that we can get caught in I need to create because like this because everyone else is creating like this, or if I don't create like this, I'm not going to get seen or anything like that, and actually know that for me it's my platform, and I can create in a way that feels really nourishing, and I love the content I create. And it may not be as flashy or as intense or catchy, but also trusting that's what the people I want in my world, rather than the ones who are doing whatever else, and finding the ways which truly nourish me, like my own podcast, because I agree, this longer form conversation, so beautiful. Like I've loved that we've been able to have this conversation, people are able to listen, and like for me, the unattachedness to that of like, I've got to connect with you more, I've got to share story, and the beauty of that regardless of the outcome. And then that for me is something that nourishes me, and I continue to really love. It's like, oh, I don't need this anything more to happen to this. It's beautiful if other stuff happens, but like I'm here now because of this conversation rather than any outcome it produces. And that for me is true beauty.
I love it. Yeah, this has been such a beautiful conversation. If you want to share maybe one more thing, how people listening can get in touch with their liminal frequencies, their healing frequencies, the subtleties of spirit. Love if you share that.
Yeah, for me, one of the biggest things is slowing down, especially if you're new on this path, to actually take the time to slow down and see what happens when that happens. For a lot of people, there may be resistance to taking time, whether it's an hour, it's a day, or it's a week, in nature, or to just not be doing anything, not be consuming content, and just taking some space. Like there's magic in that, and the remembrance that we are creators, that we are naturally creators, and that's a big part of what our role here is. And I see so many of us forget that. We've become consumers, and we think that we're going to be able to fill up or have enough of anything we're consuming, but it's never enough because we're actually meant to be creators. So to really
Yeah.
step outside of that box of I'm consuming something, and take some time. If you feel really uncomfortable, if your mind starts to go into chaos because you're not doing anything, you don't have a phone in your hand, witness, breathe, like let yourself know that that too will pass, and see what happens. Maybe on the other side of it, you might feel more open, more connected. If you're really struggling, start small. Put a timer on your phone for 5 minutes and say, I'm not doing anything for this time. And once you do that, go to 10, like slowly build. No, you don't have to do this all at once, or suddenly be someone who can go sit on a mountain by themselves for 10 days with no food and not talk to anyone. It's like, no, no, meet yourself where you're at and give yourself the permission to actually grow in the way that you need. Like there's so much out there in this world, so much knowledge. We can look up anything. We have access to anything and everything we want. And you could be like, oh, well, these people are doing something so intense or so crazy. I want to just start there. It's like, hey, maybe you're not ready for that. And it's okay to just start with the slowness you need to open in the way that you need, and trust in your own time and in your own growth, and what you need along the way. Because trying to be someone else or be where they're at is just going to be not of service for you. And to just trust. If you can only do an hour in nature, do an hour. If you can do a day, do a day. If you can have the week, go for the week. And just see who you are when no one's looking, when no one else is around, when you don't have to do anything, when there's no expectation. And if you get confused or lost and be like, well, I don't know what to do, be with that and get curious of like, oh, what do I want to do? What calls to me? Do I want to sing, dance, play like a little child, throw some rocks, like build a hut, like whatever it is, and just see what happens in the emptiness and allow yourself to emerge from there.
We're never really alone, are we? I don't feel that way.
I think for a lot of people, and this has been my own journey, like the sense of aloneness runs deep, and that can come from the disconnect we have with the world, with that, whether that's spirit or the natural world, and
Yeah.
that can be really hard to rebuild. And so for many of us, there is a feeling of a deep aloneness, and for me, I see that as one of my core woundings, and I actually have had to process that and learn to be okay with the loneliness.
Yeah.
And on the other side of that, there is connection, but because of the fear of aloneness, it wasn't something I exposed myself to. And then on the other side of that, I can see the beauty of connection all around, but to actually move through that.
I see that when we are alone and we can't be with it, then that loneliness is alone. But when we can be with the loneliness and the void, then we're not alone anymore.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Dean. So happy to have you on the show.
Jillian, it has been an absolute pleasure. I'd love to share how people can just connect with me if they want to, or find out about podcast as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll put something in the link with the podcast and how to connect with you.
Oh, cool. That would be muchly appreciated. And yeah, just I want to say thank you all for, if you're listening. Yeah, it's always beautiful to have people in these spaces. And like for myself, I'd love to hear if anything's landed, if anything me or Jillian has shared has really hit you or touched you in a certain way. Like for me, that is one of the ways we're rebuilding this web of connection that takes us just from consumers into a more connected way of life, of like letting people know, hey, what you said here really touched me, or what you two talked about really excited me, or like met some part of me. And where we actually get to weave a web of connection within this social digital world, rather than
Yes.
being like, okay, I just consume that, and okay, I go on to the next. Like, I
Yeah.
really invite you, if you've listened this far, like there was a reason. So I'm going to say this right now. I would love to receive what landed for you. And I know that can be vulnerable, because it's like, well, these people are doing a podcast and they must be all this. And it's like, no, we're just human. We're just human.
Yeah.
And I love to receive other people's humanness. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it,
Yeah, that really drives it home. I know. I say a lot of things in my show, like, reach out or share or whatever. But sometimes it can be almost like a communication with yourself. And then you connect with, like, I'll look at this episode when it's ready, and it'll be another reinvigorating of the conversation, and it'll come to life. And, when it lands for other people, it's really beautiful. So thank you for adding that.
absolute pleasure, Gillian. And once again, thank you so much for creating this and the work you're doing in the world, and just showing up in the way you are. It's really beautiful, and I've loved being able to, connect from the outside of the world and have these conversations. And it's just really nourished me this morning. So thank you very much.
And you as well. Thanks for all that you do for service of humanity.